According to the Mayor of London, the government's increasingly interested in the scheme he's been championing for a massive new airport on the marshes of Kent. Mr Johnson hopes one day to say, like Christopher Wren of St Paul's, "Si monumentum requiris circum spici." If you want my memorial, look about you. But this being Britain, nothing's going to happen imminently. In fact, there's a better than even chance nothing's going to happen at all. David Grossman reports.
He started slow and small with the Boris bike, got a bit bigger and quicker with the Boris bus, but now the Mayor of London wants to go global and at jet speed, a new airport in the Thames Estuary.
It's not here yet, but this is the proposed site of Boris Island. That's the Medway over there, the Thames over there. This is the coast of the Isle of Grain in Kent. Oh, but first things first, don't call it an island.
Don't take my word for it. Here's the Mayor's description of his shining vision.
More of a peninsula.
And this is what Boris Peninsula could look like. 150 million passengers a year. And according to the aviation industry, we do need to think big if we want to attract flyers from new emerging markets like China and Brazil.
Heathrow is running at 99%. Gatwick is a very similar figure. But if you look at Amsterdam or Frankfurt or Paris, they've got 4 runways. In fact, Amsterdam's got 6. But those airports with 4 runways run at 75% capacity. That means when there is disruption, the whole of the system doesn't collapse. There's catch-up. You can't have a 99% runway utilisation and any flexibility. And that's why the hub is seriously constrained currently.
But there are a few problems with the Thames Estuary as a site. For a start, there's the wreck of the SS Richard Montgomery, a World War II munition ship which sank with 1,400 tons of explosives aboard. That would have to be moved, as, presumably, would all the birds. According to the RSPB, this is a wetland of international importance, but, as we know, birds and engines of aircraft don't mix well.
200,000 birds coming here to winter. So would you really want to be sitting in an aircraft taking off at the end of the runway, which is where we're standing now, through thousands and thousands of birds? It's not safe, and it's not in line with the government saying it wants to be the greenest government ever.
But, you know, development needs have it's always been a balance between development needs and conservation needs. Sometimes you have to pay a price. Why not here? What's wrong with here?
Well, where do you draw the line? We've lost 50% of the wetlands in the world in the last century. This is one of the last best pieces of wetland habitat we have in the country.
For some, though, the most significant fact in all this is that 2012 is an election year in London, and Boris Johnson wants to be elected mayor again. He knows that the people out here who'd be affected by a new hub airport don't vote in those elections, whilst over there are millions of people in West London who are affected by the noise of Heathrow and perhaps worried about its expansion. Well, they do vote.
The trouble with Heathrow is that it's a great airport, but you can't indefinitely keep expanding it because it's in the wrong place. Do you know, 25% of all the people in Europe who suffer from aviation noise pollution live around Heathrow. So if you're going to expand your capacity, and business is making that case very powerfully to government. George Osborne's off in China. He understands very clearly the need to communicate with the big growth economies of Asia and Latin America. If you're going to do that, then you've got to look elsewhere.
Indeed, last month's Feltham and Heston by-election right on Heathrow's doorstep threw up some very interesting polling results, which Boris can't fail to have noticed. When asked who would they vote for in the by-election, well, Labour had a 22-point lead. When the same people were asked how they would vote for the mayor, well, Boris had a 1-point lead. Conservative strategists think a policy of shifting the airport could be decisive.
When do you expect it all to be underway?
And this does look a teensy bit more like electioneering when you talk to the Lib Dems. Any announcement this side of an election would need their approval.
Show me, sorry.
This is Norman Baker. He is a Lib Dem and a transport minister. See if you think Boris is going to win him over.
We do not support the building of a new airport, and we will do our best to stop it.
So there may be powerful arguments in favour of a new airport, and it is true that the government is about to hold a consultation on the UK's airport capacity, looking at all of the options. However, The flurry of interest today in Boris Island,
More of a peninsula.
Boris Peninsula, seems to have more to do with the London election timetable than anything else.
OK, we're joined now to discuss this by the Liberal Democrat Julian Huppert and by John Moulton, a venture capitalist. Are we really going to have national transport policy determined by whether Boris needs to get re-elected?
Yes.
That's a good thing, is it?
No.
So there's an unequivocal case that can be made for this, leaving aside whether Boris Johnson is up for election or not.
It's a pretty tough case to run easily. Other than the rather special circumstances Boris is in, it's hard to see this being politically particularly wise. There's an awful lot of opposition and very little pro this idea.
But you're in favour of it?
No, I'm not. I think that there are better alternatives. The third runway at Heathrow is not good, but it's better than the estuary idea. Linking up Gatwick and Heathrow has got lots of problems, and that's better than the estuary idea.
But given the government has said it won't do the third runway at Heathrow, what alternative is there?
Well, they could change their minds. It has been done before.
As long as you're part of the coalition, will this happen?
No, I don't think it's going to happen. But frankly, it's not just a coalition story. I think this is very much a Boris election gimmick. I've been talking to lots of Conservative MPs today who think the idea is just as daft as most of the rest of us.
It's not about Boris. It's about the need for more airport capacity.
If it was about the need for more airport capacity, you'd see the Department for Transport being involved in this, having actually done some work and studied
You're
it.
against it full stop, aren't you? You're against the idea of any further airport capacity.
I'm against the idea of an expansion in the southeast of Britain because I don't think it makes a lot of sense for an environmental perspective. We simply don't need it. But this estuary is
right on it, will you?
Well, I mean, the basics are we are absolutely maxed out at Heathrow unless we're going to deprive the locals of sleep, which is probably pushing it a bit far. We are losing our strength as an international hub. I think there's 3 destinations from Heathrow in China. There are 15 from Paris. We're losing share of flights to the Far East because we simply don't have any capacity at Heathrow. We need a greater capacity at our hub airport. The only ways we can do it, extend Heathrow quicker, painful for people in the Heathrow area. We can link up Gatwick and Heathrow. Gatwick has spare capacity. That costs money, but it costs nothing like the amount of money that's needed to build the estuary airport.
But one way or another, you say we need greater capacity because it's damaging.
It would be good for the economy and probably outweigh the significant downsides that will come with it.
So while you're in government, however long it lasts, there will be no expansion of capacity.
We've been quite clear. I mean, we'll have to see. There will be now a consultation, and we'll have to see what happens. But the coalition agreement is quite clear about where we're going to be going. We're not going to be moving away from that. And I think John's been quite accurate describing all of the problems with all of the possible solutions. And actually, in my view, they outweigh the benefits that there would be. We do have to reach our climate change targets. That means not investing in damaging projects like these.
The problem with you is that we can't believe a word you say. I mean, this was in your manifesto, no third runway and other similar commitments, as was a commitment not to increase student fees.
Well, we've been very clear on this one that we will stick to it.
Oh, this is one you will abide by, is it?
Well, I have to say, speaking as somebody who did vote against student fees, I have stuck
bully
to that.
for you. Has Nick Clegg given you an assurance that on this occasion he means what he says?
We have been very clear. The Department for Transport does not seem to be backing this. I think if you look at what they've been saying today,
what do you care about
support.
what the Department of Transport thinks? Isn't it a matter of principle for you?
Well, I'm delighted to say that in this case it seems that the Department for Transport isn't supporting it. We're not supporting it. The local MPs who are Conservatives aren't supporting it. I think John said quite accurately early on, there are very few people supporting it at all. That includes us, and we're going to stick to that.
How worried are you about politicians not investing in infrastructure in this country? For all sorts of...
Quite seriously. I mean, the cost of this estuary airport, lowest number in the press is 30 billion sterling. More reality is probably nearer 80. The government's planning to spend 8 billion on all transport infrastructure in the next year. That's the amount in the last budget. So, I mean, we do need to spend more. Improving our infrastructure is one thing that works for the future. But we've got to choose the right things. We've got to do things that can be done fairly quickly. Boris says this can be done in 6 years. It's about the same likelihood as me getting an hereditary peerage in 6 years. It's a 20-year project if it's a day.
Is there something about the way that we run these things, the way we keep on having elections, the way politicians look after their interests, that is inimical to infrastructure planning?
Absolutely it is. This is a 20-year project and we have 5-year elections. So if you're a politician, you get the downside, but you don't see it working, you don't get the upside. So why would you vote for it?
I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, this Boris Islander is part of the Foster and Partners package of ideas. Many of the other things which they're suggesting are very sense we should increase that investment. Extra rail to link up our ports properly so that goods that come in can actually come in. That would be very good for the economy. That could be done a lot faster. That would be a lot cheaper than this, and I think would actually provide a lot more benefit.
The problem is the same, though, isn't it? That you guys are living from election to election, and these things take years and years to put in place.
Indeed, and that's something we have to resolve. And the interaction of the media with politicians also shortens the timescale with 24-hour cycles.
So the fact that you guys haven't got the guts to make a decision is somehow the media's fault, is it?
No, but I think we do need to be better at taking decisions. And in fact, we are increasing, for example, on rail investment. The autumn statement announced £1.4 billion of rail investment. We're investing more in rail than ever since the Victorian era, and I think that is showing politicians are beginning to take those decisions. We will continue to do so. I hope we'll be able to have even more investment in that sort of infrastructure.
Has Nick Clegg given you an assurance on this?
On the fact that we announced the 1.4 billion?
There will be no expansion of airports in the south east?
That is our clear manifesto commitment. There is nothing to suggest anything else. There will be some further work. There is an air strategy coming out. I don't believe that will be an outcome in the southeast, and I think actually Boris's antics today with his flight of fancy have made it harder for his case.
John Moulton.
There's a lot of issues about whatever we do here. One of the problems about building any of these enhanced capacity airports in the southeast is it'll further increase the regional divide. There's lots of issues here, but this idea is just being floated for electoral purposes, nothing else.
OK, thank you both very much.